Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and right now what you're looking at the screen is what I animated throughout the week. Now, I don't like how robotic this guy moves. I don't like the timing or anything like that. I just kind of sort of got some sort of timing going on that's somewhat reminiscent of what I wanted, but it's not quite there. So this will not be inside of the 51 animation challenges. Now the next 51 animation challenge is supposed to be a character blinking. Now I could easily have a character just standing still, staring directly at the screen, and I could easily just have him just blink his eyes and say, okay, I'm done, guys. But the thing is a lot of times, like, people actually change expression as they're blinking, or they put extra emphasis on expression after a blink. Things like that. Like, take for example a really pretty girl. She looks down, blinks, and then looks up real quick. Like something about her eyelashes, her eyes, her eyebrows, and everything. The way that could look very beautiful, just that alone. So you need it, like, you got to kind of think about it, you know. And there's a lot of subtlety to like people's expressions, which means that one of the problems with beginning animators is, and myself included, is when they animate something, their characters just never stops moving, just always moving, and when the character stops moving, it doesn't even look like they're breathing. And I need to figure that out. I need to find out how to prevent that. Just how many drawings do you necessarily need in order to calm down the character and to keep them breathing, make them look like they're alive? And I'm thinking about really studying the subtlety in Disney animations. I'm you know, the thing is I think that the greatest Disney animation of all time is Beauty and the Beast. No joke. I think that there has never been anything better looking from Disney when it comes to 2D animation. However, I just gotta say, there's not very many, like, human characters throughout the cartoon. Yeah, at the very beginning there's a good variety of them, but it's just, especially male characters, like, the only character to go by is Gaston, and he's kind of a exaggerated, egotistical moron, is what Gaston is. And, like, he kind of looks like the guy from The Evil Dead, to be honest. In fact, I'm kind of surprised they didn't cast him in the live action version of Beauty and the Beast, because the guy's got such a hokey looking face. Regardless of what his face looks like, he did very well in the burn notice. But yeah, so Tarzan has a compelling looking, somewhat realistic, character driven, like, people inside of it. And so that's going to be the main thing that I'm studying. I'm just going to be taking little tiny clips, little snippets from Disney's Tarzan cartoon, and just studying the timing and spacing, and just seeing how they got it, how they got subtle animations right, where a character is slowly turning their head or something and blinking, and their expression ever so slightly changes, things like that. And what I'm finding is very difficult is being able to pay attention well enough to the cartoon while you're watching it to be able to notice, oh, this is one of those subtle things here and there. Because most of the time you just accept it. It's just like, oh, that's natural. But, I mean, there comes a point where you forget that you're even watching a cartoon, which is just fascinating with Disney stuff. Whenever I watch an anime, I'm very aware that it's a cartoon from beginning to end, and a lot of that is because of the over exaggerated faces. Take Full Metal Alchemist, for example. The eyeballs are unrealistically big, the nose is unrealistically lacking massive amounts of detail, things like that. It's highly stylized, but it's very, very appealing. It's very marketable, and I really like Full Metal Alchemist. That's actually my favorite anime of all time. And just, you know, when everything is animated on 3s and 4s and stuff like that, and a lot of this animation is actually animated like that, it does, especially for me, it does bring me out of the immersion and gets me to realize that it's a cartoon. But if I get to that point where I realize that it's a cartoon, it better be highly stylized and appealing to look at in some way. And I find that with some anime, they manage to do that with the whole anime style, with characters with enormous eyeballs and stuff like that, and just larger than life character, like just facial features and such like that. Now, as for, you know, anime, when it comes to the hairstyles and everything like that, I think most, like 99% of anime has the most ridiculous hairstyles. It's just like, hey, look, I can draw a bunch of spikes on this dude's head. Or give this character way too much hair and spikes on his head. Oh, look, his hair changed color. He must be really powerful. I'm making fun of Dragon Ball Z, by the way. But anyways, so talking more about this animation, there comes a point where I see I'm not going to use this for a 51 animation challenge, so I go ahead and put it into OTX, because even though under most circumstances no one would ever see this animation, I feel like if you find that you're not happy with what you've drawn or something that you've animated in general, this is a sort of philosophy I've always had. If you feel like, oh, this is a failed project, make it a glorious failed project. Make sure that you learn what not to do. Think about, okay, what could I do better? That way I can probably figure out what to do. That way I can have another attempt later on down the road where I have at least a better attempt. If it's not better, then I'll at least know two things what not to do, and okay, what can I do better? What would be the better workflow? And just keep narrowing it down until I find the workflow that actually works. Now, sometimes you can go online and actually just find out immediately just off of a more experienced artist or animator or something along those lines. And that's usually the way to go. But when it comes to timing and spacing and the spacing charts and stuff like that, the descriptions tend to be kind of pathetic, in my opinion. Now, if and when I do figure out the spacing charts a heck of a lot better, I'm going to have to figure out, okay, well, how is it that I'm understanding this, and how can I describe this better than everybody else? Because the way everybody else has been describing this is, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. One of the reasons why I never learned how to play the piano or the guitar is because the medium is directly related to time. And so time is something that I've always struggled with as an art form. And animation, it's 50% drawing and 50%, timing and spacing. Okay, so it's about a third. Timing is about a third of what animation is. And so I somehow need to get past this issue that I have with timing and all that good stuff. So once I do put this into OTX, I'm thinking, okay, well, there's this new feature inside of OTX which allows you to use the vector brush and turn on basically something kind of like frame range, where you can actually go pose to pose and just draw a line on your first pose, go to your second pose, draw the exact same line, and it'll automatically in between all the in-betweens. This is pretty cool to me. I really like this, but what I'm finding is with everything that I drew inside of this video, I wound up drawing everything on one level, and that gets things a huge order of magnitude more complex than it needs to be. I'm thinking, okay, well, because like in order for your auto in-betweens, like if you want to use the level strip to auto in between something, let's say you find your spacing isn't working out so well, you need to add a few more frames, well, that's fine, but in order for you to do that and still have a workflow that's similar to using the frame range brush, you need to make sure that you draw everything in order throughout the entire process, and you need to make sure that each stroke is drawn in the correct direction. And if everything isn't drawn in order or in the same direction, all the variously different facial features will start kind of bouncing all over the screen, and they won't even resemble facial features. What they'll resemble is just a bunch of weird squiggly lines moving around the face, all weird. What I'm thinking about doing is having a level dedicated to the outer outline of the character, basically the silhouette of the character, and then having another level for the eyes, the nose, the mouth, sometimes something like the ear, and that sort of thing, and the whatever other interior details, those should all be dedicated on their own level. And one of the things that the frame range brush that you're looking at right now, that I'm actually using the workflow right now, when you animate from I genuinely feel as though you should go from say a keyframe to a breakdown, from one breakdown to the next breakdown, from one breakdown to a keyframe, that sort of thing. What happens is when you do that, it doesn't follow any arcs. So what you should do, what I'm thinking is, what you should do is you should find the level that is the furthest from the arc. Select everything on that frame, on that level, and move it to match the arc. And then you do 2 auto in-betweeners. Okay, what you do is you select the frame that you just adjusted and the pose that's above it on the level strip with all the in-betweens, and then auto in between it. You just press the in-between button and it'll automatically in between things to be closer to matching the arc. And then you repeat the process, only that you select that frame once again that you just adjusted, all the in-betweens and the pose below it on the level strip, and press the in-between button. And then you might have to repeat this whole process once again, just so that all the in-betweens are closer to following the arc, or however many times that you need to in order to get the movement that you need. Now, there are two complaints that I have about this frame range brush. First thing is the spacing is not adjustable. You kind of have a selection from just, linear to easing in to easing out, but you have no control as to how strong or how weak the easing in and easing out is. You can't control any, motion curves or anything like that. So I have no idea as to what a workaround towards that should be, but it's something. Regardless, this is an interesting new feature in OTX. As for the next thing that I have a complaint about is when you go to your first pose and you draw your line, you have an infinite number of attempts that you can go by. But with your second pose to draw that same line, you only get one attempt. So it'd be nice to be able to, have a keyboard shortcut or some button that would give you another attempt. Anyways, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to check out any of my other videos, they're on the screen right now. You guys take care. Bye-bye.